because then you know who's talking to you. Like Sandra said, I'm a trainer and consultant at SERVIEW, and my main topic are Agile methods. I'm the lead trainer of Scrum at SERVIEW, and I also implement Agile methods in different companies and support our customers in Agile transformation. And in the next minutes, I will present you the most used Agile methodologies and frameworks and tell you in what situations you can use them and when you shouldn't use them. I will also explain the pros and cons. So in the end of the webinar, I hope, you will have a compact overview of the Agile methods, and maybe we could help you to make a decision for using one or two Agile approaches in your company in the near future. So what I'm gonna talk about. First of all, I will show you the most used Agile approaches in one picture and explain you how to classify them. After that, I will give you a more detailed insight in Scrum and Kanban, two Agile frameworks for product development. And then I will talk about lean startup and design thinking. Afterwards, I will show you a combination of these frameworks you can use, for example, in one project. And yeah, here you can see that there are not only Agile approaches for product development, there are also Agile methods for projects, like Prince to Agile. I will talk about it later. And after that, I will talk a little bit about SAFe, SAFe as Scaled Agile Framework. And finally, I will explain OKR, Objectives and Key Results, a goal-setting method. And yeah, after I've talked very much, I hope we will have some time for your questions. So I will share my laser pointer that you can see what I'm talking about. Here you can see different Agile approaches. On the left side, you can see Agile approaches which are used in the software development. On the right side, you see methods and frameworks you can use in any vertical, not only in the software development. Down here, you see Agile approaches for the operative field, and up here you see Agile approaches for the organizational or strategic field. Let's start here in this left corner. TDD, PP, XP, so it's called test-driven development, pair programming, extreme programming, are innovative ways to programming software. So you'll find these Agile approaches in the operative field and in a software development context. On the right side, we see lean startup and design thinking. These are frameworks you use in the operative field and which are not specialized for any vertical. I will tell you more about these two frameworks in the next slides. Here you see DevOps. DevOps is development and operations, development and IT operations. So it's also specialized in the software development. But this framework combines the product development and the operation from the beginning. So development and operation run in parallel. Here you can see IREP. IREP, Requirements Engineering at Agile. It is used for requirements engineering and Agile environments, and this framework can combine with Scrum and Kanban. I will tell you more about Scrum and Kanban in the next slides, but IREP, Scrum, and Kanban connect the operative and strategic fields, and you can use them for software development, but also in any other verticals outside of IT communication. Here on the right, we see Prince to Agile. Prince to Agile is an Agile project methodology and is used for projects in very flexible project environments. It's used in the strategic area and can be used in every vertical. Later I will talk about a little bit more about it. And here is SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework. Scaled Agile Framework is a collection of Agile methods. Includes, for example, frameworks like Scrum, like Kanban, design thinking, and also IT service management like iterative. And it's like a guideline you can use for handling your projects in a company. It is used for digital transformation and yeah, can be used as a guideline for the decision which framework you can use in which transformation context. And last but not least, objectives and key results as a goal-setting method in which employees are involved in formulating the company's goals. I will tell you more about that at the end of the webinar. It's a very cool method, I think. So this for a short overview. The first framework I will show you is Scrum. Scrum for Agile product development. And Scrum is suitable for very complex product development that is frequently affected by changes and where there are many blurred requirements from the start. So how does it work? In Scrum exists 3 roles. The product owner, you can see here on the left side, the Scrum Master, who's here, and the developer. The product owner is accountable for the product and the contact point to the customer. He takes a responsibility to communicate with the customer and for understand the requirements of the customer. The Scrum Master acts like a servant leader and supports the whole Scrum team. The Scrum team exists out the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developer. And the Scrum Master has responsibility for facilitate meetings and eliminate impediments so that the rest of the Scrum team can stay focused. And the developers are the specialists who develop the product and its functionalities. So how can you start with Scrum? We have here the customer. The customer has special requirements. And these requirements the product owner has to understand and include in his product backlog. He also has to define a product goal with the customer to know which direction to take. It's like a marathon goal. It helps the Scrum team to stay focused through the whole product development and helps not to stray from the path. So when the product goal is defined, the Scrum team can start the first sprint. A sprint is a time box of maximum 4 weeks. At the end of the time box, at the end of this 4 weeks, the Scrum team should have developed a potentially releasable and usable product increment. For example, a piece of software. And the first event or the first meeting, you can say, in the sprint is called sprint planning. In this meeting, the whole Scrum team decide why the sprint provides value, what they have to do to deliver that value, and how they can do that. For that, they define a sprint goal. The sprint goal is like an interim goal in the whole product development. The team only choose requirements out of the product backlog which help to reach that sprint goal. And these requirements the developers include into their sprint backlog. And after everyone knows what is to do and how to do this, the doing phase follow. This is here. Here the developers develop and work off the chosen requirements. To recognize impediments very fast while development, the developers meet every day in the daily Scrum to give a short update, for example, and to recognize impediments very fast. In the end of the sprint, in the end of the time box, the 4 weeks, the whole Scrum team and the customer meets together in the review, the sprint review, to see the results of the sprint. In this event, the customer can give directly feedback and the product owner has to check the product increment. And the last event in Scrum is the sprint retrospective. Here, the whole Scrum team defines measures to improve the process, to look what was good in this sprint, what was not so good, what can we improve, how can we improve our process. And when they did that, the sprint is over and the next sprint starts immediately with the sprint planning again. So this is a short description of how Scrum works, that you can understand it a little bit more. The pros of Scrum are, for example, that through the fixed time boxes, you can work more focused and be more efficient. For example, in the sprint planning, we only have 8 hours for a 4-week sprint to plan the sprint. The daily Scrum is time boxed to 15 minutes to be very concentrated and focused to give a short update, for example. And it's more efficient. We don't lose space, we don't lose time. And through just-in-time planning, it is easier to react to changes because you can swap or trade requirements, because we start a new plan in every sprint. We don't plan the whole development. We only plan in iterative moments. And one more pro for Scrum is that through the dailies exchange, you have a quick recognition of impediments. So you can react very fast on risks, for example. And through the iterative involvement of the customer in the review, you can get fast and regular feedback that causes a better product at the end. The retrospectives are also a very good thing in Scrum because they allow continuous improvement of the Scrum process, that you can work more efficient. I think these are the most or the best pros for this framework, but we also have negative aspects or cons. For example, we have no sprint 0 or an initiating sprint or something similar. So the first sprint is often very difficult and goals are often not achieved because first you have to know the approach, feel your way around, warm up with the team and product. You have to know each other. You have to be or to become a one team culture, and that takes a little bit of time and maybe give you other focus in the development. Moreover, the Scrum Master and the product owner can also be developers. So they have 2 roles. So one person has 2 roles and 2 responsibilities. And that could be difficult to delimit the roles and not let them become blurred. So this is a short description for Scrum as a framework for Agile product development. Another framework for Agile product development is Kanban. Kanban is a visualized workflow control and is used for Agile product development, like I said. It is a self-organized flow management and there are no roles inside like in Scrum, because here you work with a pull principle. I will tell you something more about it later. So how can you use Kanban? You can create a simple board like this, but you also can create and customize a Kanban board according to your individual needs. In the first column, you see the whole work you need to do in form of tickets, which are ready to be processed. So here are some tickets we have to do, some work we have to do, some requirements. If you start to work on a ticket, you put it into the build column. And work in progress, okay, we'll talk later about it. So these tickets in the ready column are prioritized. And when I will start work, I take the first ticket or pull the first ticket in the build column. And now I do the development. Now I work on the ticket. When I'm finished the ticket or the work on that ticket, I pull it in the test column so that my work can be tested. And now I'm finished and have nothing to do. So what's next? I pull the next ticket and start working on the next ticket again. So I put it again in the build column, and when I've finished, I will take it or pull it in the test column. And if the test was successful, the ticket will be pulled in deploy or done. So a very easy process to visualize your workflow. But you also see here's a work in progress or a work in progress limit, because you can measure your workflow with Kanban. For example, you can limit the work in progress to understand in which situation you cause jam. Like this. When we say, okay, our test column will be limited on 1, that means that here can only be 1 ticket at the same time. You can't pull other tickets in that column. So you will see that here maybe we have jam. And to prevent that and to optimize the process, we work with a work in progress limit. And to show where have we do risk, where can we optimize our workflow. Maybe we have more testers, for example. And you also can measure the process by the delivery rates. You do this by looking at how many tickets you have completed in a given period of time. It's called throughput. So that you can see in the future how many tickets you can work in a period of time. So it's like your capacity for, I don't know, for the next 4 weeks, for example. And while doing so, you should implement feedback loops. Feedback loops in form of stand-up meetings. Stand-up meetings are like the same in Scrum, the daily Scrum, that you meet together in front of the board and check your progress, give a short update, and for recognizing impediments very early. So the pros of Kanban are that you have an overall view of your requirements. You know what is in the doing or in the work in progress, you know what is done. It's a very simple structure, and there are only a few agreements necessary because of the pull principle. And this pull principle, and that we only have to do a few agreements, saves time for us. The cons on Kanban are that the board must be well maintained. And it's very important that all team members have a commitment. A commitment of the individual team members is mandatory. And what's very cool, you can also combine Kanban with Scrum, and then you call it Scrumban. So you can visualize your workflow also in Scrum with Kanban. And other framework I will show you is called Lean Startup. Lean Startup is based on company foundation, like you can see in the name, startup. But it's basically also suitable for all ideas or changes implemented in very risky environments. Because with Lean Startup, you can deliver products very fast. For example, in form of prototypes, experiments, or MVPs, minimal viable products. And you can quickly see if it is worth spending more time and money on the product or not. And this is called the fail fast principle, because maybe you see very early that no one likes your idea or that it doesn't work, but that's not bad because you didn't spend a lot of time and money and know that you should do something else. It's called fast failure, right? Fail fast principle, like I said before. And the principle is very easy. You have an idea or a change, you want to change something. So what are you going to do? You build or develop the most important functions of the product so that your idea or product works. Then you measure how the market reacted to the product. You evaluate the data and can see what you have to change, or if your idea is sustainable, and adapt the new knowledge. This is the learn aspect. And this process is called validating learning. With the new knowledge you get here, you continue and improve your idea and evolve the product. And this process is often used, for example, in the gaming industry. When a company creates a new game, they go live with a minimum of the product with the MVP, for example, or MMP, the minimum marketable product, to prove if the game was sustainable on the market and not waste time and money for products that do not create value. So the pros of that validating learning process of lean startup is that we have fast feedback loops. So does the idea catch on or not? Will the product be bought or not? And what do I need to adjust? And that can save a lot of time and money. The cons are that not all products can be tested for viability in live environments. And another aspect is that if the minimal viable product is not well received, this can decline the image of the company. So it's very important to think about it. Okay, are we ready to go live, or should we evolve our product much more, or a little bit more? Another great agile approach is design thinking. Design thinking is an approach which is suitable for all kinds of projects. You can use it, for example, before a project starts, and there's no real idea what the output should be and how to proceed. And for example, in a kickoff workshop, the whole project team can brainstorm to create an idea of the product. For that, it is important that the team understand that a product has to be desirable, viable, and feasible. All these three characteristics must be present, otherwise the product will not be successful. Meeting the characteristics is a process in which you diverge and converge the ideas. So while you are in the diverge phase, you collect all ideas, no matter of the ideas meets all three characteristics. After you have collected some ideas, you converge. So you sort out the ideas which do not meet all three characteristics. You repeat that steps until you have filtered a concrete idea. And this is an iterative process again. So why? Because you first understand what is to do. Then you observe the market. You focus on something, on some ideas. You brainstorm. You develop, for example, a prototype and then test it. And then you repeat to concretize the idea. And that you make in short iterative phases or steps. So the pros of design thinking is that everyone in an organization can participate. So everyone can be involved from the beginning, from the start of a project, and everyone can better understand the vision of the project or the product development. So everyone can better understand the individual work or work steps or to-dos. The cons or negative aspects are that the workshop, when you do a workshop, like I said before, must be led by an experienced facilitator. So you need a person who can facilitate the workshop very well. And another aspect which you have recognized is that the participants have to want to participate and engage in possibly completely new approaches. Otherwise, they maybe are not happy about the way you're gonna go in the future. So these are the best practice or the most used Agile frameworks. And you can combine all these frameworks. So all frameworks I showed you, Scrum, Lean Startup, Kanban, Design Thinking, can be used and combined in an Agile project. You can start with design thinking to create a product idea. And after there is an available idea or concept, you can develop a prototype or minimal viable product by using Lean Startup, for example. And if you see that the idea is marketable, feasible, and desirable, and you have a concrete idea or a concrete concept, you can evolve the product by using, for example, Scrum. to improve your product after it is implemented, you can use Kanban. And Kanban for optimizing your product. And these processes are emergent practices. Emergent means the more time passes, the more detailed something becomes. And you can see here in this process too. However, these are only frameworks. Design thinking, lean startup, Scrum, Kanban are only frameworks. And to be able to apply them in a project, you need a project methodology which is on top. Because we need a responsibility which can manage the project, we need a strategic direction. And this you have, for example, with Prince2 Agile. Prince2 Agile is an agile project methodology, like I said in the start or beginning of the webinar, which is suitable for projects that are frequently affected by changes and often starts with fuzzy requirements. The origin of Prince2 Agile is Prince2, a project methodology too. Projects in controlled environments, Prince means. Prince2 is not to be understood as a classic variant of Prince2 Agile, because it isn't. It's not comparable with, for example, the waterfall model. The difference between Prince2 and Prince2 Agile is that Prince2 focuses on the directing and managing level. Prince2 Agile focuses on the delivering level. So in comparison to Prince2 Agile, Prince2 has a strength on the first and second level, and the Agile methods have their strengths on the delivery level. So Prince2 Agile tries to merge governance from Prince2 with self-organization from the Agile methods. And self-organization is a very important value in Agile. So on the one hand, there is still strategic direction and leadership from the directing level, but on the other hand, you adapt an Agile mindset, which includes feedback culture, no blame culture, self-management, flexibility, and more informal communication or interaction. And that's through the delivery level where Agile frameworks be used. So you see that we have still a governance thing, but these were combined with self-organization or self-management. So one aspect I have to tell you is the difference between a framework and a methodology. So you see within Prince2 Agile, you can develop products, for example, with Scrum, Kanban, or Lean Startup. The difference between these frameworks and the methodology, Prince2 Agile, for example, is that you cannot manage a project only with frameworks, because frameworks only give you a frame and do not give you detailed information about individual process steps. In comparison to that, methodology gives you any information you need for the next step. Methodologies describe every single step you have to do. And moreover, you need the role of a project manager, like I said, to manage a project. Frameworks like Scrum or Kanban have not a role or responsibility like that. So for a project, you always need a project methodology. Only a framework is not enough. The pros of Prince2 Agile are a faster or more efficient way of working due to more informal communication through all levels. The delivering level communicate to the directing level, through the managing level, so through all three levels. I think you all know that 100 email back and forth thing until we understand each other, it's not a good thing. It wastes much time. Okay, 100 is a bit much, but 5 emails to understand what to do. And if you can communicate or have an informal interaction, so face to face, it's faster and easier to understand what's the next step or what's the problem. Moreover, Prince2 Agile is, because of that fact, less bureaucracy, and there is a possibility of more flexible handling of changes due to the self-organization, because the delivery teams can make changes by their own without the go from the directing level, for example. And one more good thing in Prince2 Agile is that we can work very transparent through constant feedback. And all levels, directing, managing, and delivering level, are involved. So everyone has the same knowledge, for example, about the progress or risks. But we have also negative aspects. For example, especially in agile transformation, it's very important. So it's not a negative aspect, but you have to recognize it. It's very important to build the agile mindset at all levels. You have to enable same understanding at all levels in the project organization or in the whole company. You have to allow self-organization, self-management. And this aspect is for some people, or means for some people, loss of control, which they don't like. But it isn't. It isn't a loss of control. It's self-management, self-organization. Yeah? And you have recognized that restructuring processes takes time. So it's not a one-day thing to go agile. It's a process. The next method I will show you is SAFE. SAFE, Scaled Agile Framework. One more agile approach. And like I said before, SAFE is a collection of methods for digital transformation in companies. It includes many current best practices such as Lean, DevOps, Scrum, Kanban, and so on. And for using SAFE, you should know these frameworks very well, because if there's no experience regarding agile frameworks, the company needs a longer agile transformation process. And the agile frameworks are linked by SAFE. So SAFE can be understood as a digital transformation guide. And that guide specifies at which level which agile approaches or frameworks should be applied. So it's a very complex framework, and you have to understand in which transformation level I am and which framework could be the best for me in this situation. And the processes also can be like in Scrum, that you have time boxes, that you have a Scrum team, that you get often feedback and shows how to improve your processes. The last one I want to show you is objectives and key results. Objectives and key results is a management method that helps to ensure that all activities are focused on the same and most important goals throughout an organization. The objectives are or provide a clear answer to the question, where do we want to go? The key results operationalize these objectives and answer the question, and how do we know we are on the right way now? So how does it work? First of all, the organization should think about a long-term vision and mission statement. This mission statement must pictorially depict the idea in a motivating way that guides us in what we all do day in and day out. And the longer the mission statement remains, the more credible it is, and the coworkers trust in the organization. We also should review and inspect the vision that we do with the mission. So how do we get a little closer to our mission statement? This should be presented also in a pictorial, motivational way too. So based on this, we define our objectives and key results cyclically. So our goals. For example, define new objectives and key results, targets, goals quarterly, every 3 or 4 months, because we want to move forward in our organization. And that's easier when you go small steps and reach smaller goals than to reach big goals, because big goals need more time to reach them and the progress is not so evident. That could be maybe demotivating for everyone in the organization and doesn't bring you forward. To can reach your goals, you should notice that all objectives and key results, so all goals, must be value-driven. They must be transparent, so visible to all in the organization. Everyone has to know or has to understand why are we doing that. The objectives and key results also have to be action and future oriented, and also a little bit challenging, but in a positive wording, I would say. And the last thing I want to tell you, which is very cool, is that the owner of the objectives and key results can change them without the approval of the upper level, because you as a coworker can do that changes or make the steps to reach the goals. Sure, we have a top-down orientation, yeah, but no delegation. For example, the CEO wants specific goals, and then I, as a coworker, think about how can I help the organization to get closer to this goal, and the CEO has to support me in implementing this goal, and not the other way around, because I will support him, but he or she has also support me, because we have to build a one team culture, for example, to reach our concrete goal, because we're in the same boat. And that's very cool. And for objectives and key results, this is a start for growing or being more agile. And then you can go forward with the other frameworks I show you. For example, in the development, you're working with Scrum, or in your projects, you're working with Prince to Agile, where you also include Scrum or Kanban or a Lean Startup. So you can mix them all up. And that's very cool, I think. So now a little bit faster than I thought, but Sandra, are there any questions from the participants?
Yes, Katja, first I want to say thank you for your presentation. Now let's have a look to the questions. We have received a question and the participant is asking, in the combination example, what kind of time frame are we talking about? 10% of project time in design thinking, 10% in lean, etc.?
Okay, I will go back to the slide to show you where it is. One moment, sorry, here it is. There is no time frame for that. It's depending on the project and what you do. But design thinking, it could be maybe one day, it could be half a day, but also it could be 1 week. It depends on the project and on the product what you do. Lean startup, yeah, that could be also is also variable. It could be, for example, but this should be a little bit shorter, of course, than Scrum. So that could be, for example, 1 month, for example. Scrum, the further development can take 1 month or longer, half a year, 1 year, and the improvement of the delivered product, it also can take 1 month or 2 months or 1 year. So there is no real time frame. It depends on the project, it depends on the product.
Okay, thank you, Katja. So no more questions were received, and I would like to end the webinar at this point. Dear participants, if you have any questions afterwards, or if you would like to receive the slides of this webinar, please send us an email to info@serview.de, and we will send you the information as soon as possible. You can also find a recording of this webinar on our SERVIEW YouTube channel. Just a short note on our own behalf. The next dates and webinars you can find on our website www.serview.de. We would be pleased to welcome you at one of our other webinars. So we end the webinar for today and would like to thank all participants for your attention. We wish you all the best. Please take care and stay healthy.
Thank you for listening. Bye.